Every single thing we do, even just walking down the street, it leaves some kind of trace.
Absolutely. We're constantly interacting with and changing our environment.
And usually those traces, they might guide what we do next or maybe what someone else does.
Right, like breadcrumbs.
But what if you could deliberately use those traces? Like to talk to your future self, to coach yourself.
Now that's the really interesting idea we're diving into today. Temporal self-communication.
Temporal self-communication.
Okay.
So using things you create, modifications to your surroundings to guide, you later on.
Exactly. Not just coordinating with others, but specifically setting things up for your future self to learn from.
So our mission today is to unpack this. We're looking at a really powerful framework for this kind of self-teaching based on, believe it or not, parkour.
Yeah, it's based on some deep interviews from 2022 and 2025 with Jason Paul. He's this elite parkour athlete.
A big content creator too, right?
Huge. And the key thing is, he documented his entire learning process, like meticulously, for over 17 years, from the very beginning.
Wow. 17 years of self-documentation. That's an incredible data set for understanding how someone masters a skill, especially autodidactically, teaching themselves.
It really is. It's almost like the perfect case study for this. But before we jump into his specifics, we need a couple of key terms on the table.
Okay, lay them on us. You mentioned traces earlier.
Right. The academic term for that is stigmergy. It sounds a bit fancy, but the core idea is simple.
Stigmergy, okay.
It was coined back in 1959, a biologist named Grass. He used it to explain how termites build these incredibly complex nests.
Without a foreman yelling orders.
Exactly. One termite does something, leaves a little change in the environment, a stigma, basically a sign of work,
Right.
and that change triggers the next termite to do its part. It's indirect coordination through the environment.
Okay, that makes sense for termites, teamwork. But how does that apply to Jason Paul watching a video of himself?
Oh.
Isn't that just watching a video?
Well, that's the crucial distinction, the gap this research really explores. Stigmergy usually gets discussed in terms of, inter-individual coordination. Agent A affects Agent B.
Right. Termite A, termite B.
But Grass A's original concept, it actually included intra-individual coordination too.
Yeah.
The idea that a worker could be stimulated by the very performance they just achieved.
So you influencing yourself through the work you just did.
Precisely. And in this context, the video recording Jason Paul makes, that's what the research calls a metamark.
The metamark. Okay, so that's the deliberate trace. The sign left specifically for future reference.
Yes, it's the intentional environmental modification. The video acts like a communicative bridge.
Connecting the Jason Paul who did the jump
The past performer.
with the Jason Paul watching the footage later, the present observer.
Exactly. It enables what they call diachronic self-communication, basically talking to yourself across time.
Diachronic.
Yeah.
Okay, cross time. Makes sense. And you can see why this would be huge in something like parkour, right? It's often learned solo or in small groups, not always formal coaching.
For sure. Athletes like Paul become highly attuned to self-feedback because they have to be. So these metamarks, these videos, they're not just vanity projects, they're core learning tools.
So they function as, what was the term? Temporal-cognitive artifacts.
Yeah, temporal-cognitive artifacts. It sounds a bit academic, maybe.
Let's get down. What does that mean practically?
It means the video takes something that's purely internal and, kind of fleeting-like, the feeling of a movement, the embodied knowledge, and turns it into something external, something persistent.
Like writing down a thought so you don't forget it, but for movement.
Exactly. It externalizes that implicit embodied knowledge. It makes those unconscious learning patterns available for conscious analysis. It's like building a scaffold for your thinking about your own movements.
Okay, I get it. It makes the invisible visible and analyzable.
Right. And that leads directly to the core cognitive benefit here. The research calls it the reality gap.
The reality gap. I like the sound of that. What is it?
It's basically the engine driving this whole self-learning process. See, when you're actually doing the parkour move.
You're just in it. You feel it from the inside.
Right. You have the subjective experience, proprioception, what it feels like. You might think you tucked really tight or jumped at a certain angle.
But you don't actually know what it looked like objectively.
Exactly. The video provides that objective record. So the present self, the observer, can directly compare the felt sense of the performance with the actual visual data.
And that comparison, that's impossible while you're midair.
Totally impossible in the moment. Bridging that gap, seeing the discrepancy between subjective feeling and objective reality, that's where the real correction happens. That's the power of the metamark.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So Jason Paul was doing this intuitively for years, but the research synthesized this into a more systematic model, right? The 5 Rs.
Yeah, the 5 Rs framework. It emerged from analyzing his whole process. It stands for revisit, remember, reassess, recalibrate, and reinforce.
5 Rs. Okay, where should we start? Which one gives the biggest immediate bang for the buck, so to speak?
Definitely recalibrate. This is where the most direct, almost immediate performance improvements seem to happen.
Recalibrate. Why is it so powerful?
Because it directly tackles systematic biases. These aren't just one-off mistakes. They're the persistent, unconscious errors in your technique or even in your perception that you just keep making because they feel right.
The things you don't even know you're doing wrong.
Exactly. Paul gave great examples. Like, he often felt he was tucking his body really tightly in a flip, super small.
Right.
But he'd watch the video and realize he was, in his words, way off,
Yeah.
much more open than he felt. The metamark, the video, acted as an honest mirror. It showed him the objective truth his internal senses were hiding.
It's brutal, but necessary, I guess.
Totally. And there's this amazing specific example about takeoff angles that really drives it home.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So Paul knew from physics, or just experience, that a 45-degree takeoff angle was generally optimal for a certain type of jump. That was the intention.
Okay, 45 degrees. Got it.
And he felt like he was hitting that. Subjectively, it felt like a 45-degree launch.
But the video...
The video showed consistently he was actually taking off at more like 60 degrees. Every time he thought he was doing 45, it was really 60.
Whoa, so his internal protractor was just wrong.
Fundamentally miscalibrated. It wasn't just that he was failing to execute 45 degrees. His feeling of 45 degrees was 60 degrees. The error wasn't just in the action. It was in the internal perception guiding the action.
So how did he fix that? He couldn't just try harder to feel 45 degrees.
Exactly. The only way for him to consistently achieve an actual 45-degree takeoff was to consciously, or maybe it became subconscious over time, aim for what felt like 30 degrees.
He had to undershoot his feeling to hit the objective mark.
Precisely. The video allowed him to correct the error in his internal error detection system itself. It's like realizing your speedometer is off by 15 mph and learning to drive accordingly.
That is a profound level of self-correction. It's not just fixing a move. It's fixing how you perceive the move.
Right. But here's a critical piece about recalibration. Timing is everything.
How so?
Paul really emphasized this kind of fine-tuning, comparing the felt sense to the visual reality. It works best when the review is immediate, like right after the attempt.
Seconds later.
Yeah. He said if he had to wait even like 2-3 minutes for the camera crew to reset or move,
The feeling would fade.
exactly.
Yeah.
That subconscious data, the proprioceptive memory of the specific failed attempt, it decays incredibly fast. The comparison becomes much weaker, less useful.
So that immediate feedback loop is crucial. Film, attempt, watch, adjust.
Right?
Right away.
Yes. Film early in your process, review instantly. Otherwise, those inefficient patterns, those systematic biases, they just get practiced and hardened into habits. Much harder to fix later.
Okay, so recalibrate is the short game. The immediate fix based on that reality gap. What about the long game? All those years of footage must be useful for more than just fixing takeoff angles, right? Let's talk about remember.
Absolutely. That's where the archival function of the metamark really shines. All that footage isn't just for correction, it's also for retrieval, for remembering.
How does watching an old video help you remember a physical skill?
The research talks about vicarious proprioception. When Paul watches a video of himself successfully landing a trick, especially when he hasn't done it in a while,
It triggers the feeling.
it seems to activate the kinesthetic memory. It's not just seeing it, it's almost like re-experiencing it in an embodied way just by watching.
Okay, vicarious proprioception. And Paul had a great term for this, didn't he? Something about visualization.
He called it a steroid version of being able to visualize it.
Right, so if there's a trick that feels kind of scary, maybe he hasn't done it in a year.
Instead of just trying to mentally rehearse it, which can be fuzzy or inaccurate.
He pulls up the clip of himself nailing it.
Exactly. And that provides a much more vivid, accurate, and importantly, confidence-boosting motor template than pure imagination can. It acts like a scaffold for confidence. I did this. Look.
That makes total sense. It's proof.
And it goes further. Think about all that accumulated footage over 17 years. It becomes a kind of prosthetic memory.
Prosthetic memory, like an artificial limb for your memory.
Sort of. Our embodied memory for complex skills naturally fades if we don't practice them constantly. But the video archive doesn't fade. It compensates for those natural limitations.
So even if a skill becomes dormant,
He can pull up the tape from 5, 10 years ago, see the technique, maybe re-trigger that vicarious proprioception, and get the accurate motor template back much faster than starting from scratch. It's like having a personal reference library of his own performance evidence.
ensuring skills aren't lost, just
Exactly.
archived, ready to be reactivated. Okay, so we have recalibrate for immediate fixes, remember for long-term retrieval and confidence. What about revisit? How is that different from remember?
Revisit is a bit broader. It definitely includes the archival value we just talked about, that satisfaction of preserving cool moments, moments of flow.
Sure, the highlight reel aspect.
Yeah. But it also has this interesting function of mediating between the self and the community, providing an external perspective.
How does that work?
Paul mentioned something interesting. Sometimes other people would make compilation videos of his best tricks, things he'd posted over the years.
Okay, fan edits, maybe.
Right. And watching those compilations could be really revealing because moves that felt very normal or even easy to him.
Might be the ones the audiences found absolutely mind-blowing.
Exactly. It helped him see his own work through others' eyes, revealing blind spots about what was actually impressive or unique about his style, things he might have otherwise underestimated.
That's a valuable external calibration, finding out what resonates. Okay, that's revisit. Now reassess. This sounds intuitive, figuring out if a move works in a new spot.
It is intuitive, but it highlights a key limitation of the metamark, of the video itself. Reassessment is all about transferability. Will this technique I filmed over there work here?
And the video helps, but
But the video primarily captures the kinematic patterns, the visible movements of the body. What it doesn't capture is the full ecological context, all the invisible factors.
like the surface texture, the wind, the psychological state.
Exactly. Paul gave a great example about performing on stage. The energy from the crowd, the adrenaline, it actually gave him more power.
So the same physical input resulted in a bigger output.
Right, which meant he had to be more careful not to over-rotate flips that he had dialed in perfectly in training. The video of the training jump couldn't show that extra energy factor.
So successful reassessment, successful transfer,
Mm-hmm.
requires integrating the video evidence with all those other contextual factors the video can't show.
Precisely. The metamark is powerful, but it's not the whole picture for transfer.
Got it. Okay, final R, reinforce. This sounds like where the social aspect really comes in.
That's right. Reinforce closes the loop by integrating external feedback, especially when those metamarks are shared publicly, like on YouTube or Instagram.
The likes, the comments, the shares.
All that social validation data.
Yeah.
It creates this hybrid feedback mechanism. Paul could see not just what felt good or what looked good on video, but what actually resonates with other people.
And use that strategically.
Absolutely. He could consciously choose to reinforce or practice techniques that were maybe relatively easy for me, but impressive to others.
Finding the sweet spot, the low-hanging fruit for competitions or content.
Exactly. It helps guide competition strategy, pick the moves that give the most impact for the effort, and it also helps shape his identity and niche within the broader parkour community. It's a blend of internal assessment and external validation.
So looking back at all 5 R's, revisit. Remember, reassess, recalibrate, reinforce. What's the big picture? What does this tell us about the overall structure of learning through these metamarks?
Well, the research suggests a kind of bifurcated temporal structure. 2 main ways these metamarks function based on time.
Okay.
You've got the immediate use, reviewing footage seconds after an attempt. That's primarily for recalibration and refinement, fixing those systematic errors, dialing in the technique, the short-term fixes.
And the other use.
That's the archival use, watching footage days, months, or years later. That's mainly for retrieval and remembering, scaffolding confidence, reactivating dormant skills, getting that external perspective.
So short-term correction, long-term reinforcement and retrieval.
Basically, yes. And the whole process, using these metamarks systematically, enables this really unique form of, well, thinking about your own thinking across time, temporal metacognition.
Temporal metacognition. So it's not just learning the moves, it's learning how you learn the moves and how you perceive them over time.
You got it. It allows you to become a systematic critic of your past self's performance and perception. You're not just watching replays, you're doing this deep comparative analysis to find and fix those hidden systematic biases.
And the fact that Paul became a world-class athlete, largely self-taught, that suggests this method is incredibly effective.
Hugely effective. It suggests that this kind of structured, self-directed stigmergy using metamarks can genuinely function as a sort of persistent virtual coach.
A virtual coach you build yourself from your own past performances.
Right. It can potentially substitute for, or at least significantly augment, traditional external coaching, especially in motor skill domains.
But it's not magic, right?
Yeah.
It's not just hitting the record button. What does it take for this to actually work so well?
No, definitely not magic. The research is clear on the necessary conditions. You need that deep, intrinsic motivation, for starters. You have to want to put in the work to analyze.
Sure, can't fake that.
You need high metacognitive awareness, the ability to actually do that frame-by-frame analysis Paul was doing, to notice the subtle discrepancies. That's a skill in itself.
And the tech setup, right? Easy, immediate feedback.
Crucial. That immediate playback infrastructure is key for the Recalibrate function. And probably having community reference points, other videos to compare against helps too.
So it takes dedication, awareness, and the right setup.
Absolutely. So the core lesson here isn't just film yourself. It's something deeper. It's that we are constantly in conversation with our environment and with ourselves across time. But the real challenge
Isn't creating the traces. We do that constantly now. We document everything.
Exactly. The scarce resource isn't the documentation, the archive, the metamarks. It's the discernment.
The skill to actually use those archives.
Yes, the skill to turn those potentially passive recordings into active learning partners, to listen to what your past self is trying to tell you through those traces.
So expertise isn't just innate talent. It emerges from building better and better dialogues between your past, present, and future selves using these environmental records.
That seems to be the key takeaway, constructing increasingly accurate self-dialogues.
And this is where it gets really interesting for everyone listening. We've been talking about parkour, this very physical skill.
Right. Concrete movements, easy to film.
But think about your work, your non-physical performances.
Yeah.
Writing, coding, designing, researching, even just journaling.
You're creating metamarks constantly in those domains too. Every draft you save, every notebook entry, every design iteration, every commit message.
Those are all traces left by your past self. They're artifacts of your thinking process.
Exactly. Documents you probably think of as just inert history, old versions, but they are potentially incredibly rich data sets.
Containing evidence of your own systematic errors, your blind spots, but maybe also your hidden strengths, things you did well without realizing it.
Potentially, yes. All waiting in the archive.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with, something to mull over. Are you treating your own work archives, your drafts, your notes, your logs, as just storage?
Yep.
As a digital graveyard?
Or could you start treating them as active interlocutors, as critical collaborators, as messages from your past self?
What if you started a deliberate conversation with those archives? What hidden patterns, what systematic biases in your thinking or process might they reveal? Maybe it's time to activate that persistent virtual coach you didn't even know you had.